Oh, thank you. Thank you. Let me start by this. In 2016, I woke up at 3:30 a.m. with a feeling that this log, or something like it, was resting on my chest. So the next morning, I went to the doctor, and he sent me to the hospital. I got examined for 4 hours, and I left the hospital 4 hours later with the official diagnosis of a good heart. Nothing was physically wrong with me. And ever since, it came back to me every now and then when I was feeling overwhelmed. The point is, I'm prone to stress. And knowing that, I was astonished to hear that I was voted into Spaces Summit. By the way, the clock's not running. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Ah, great. So I was astonished that I was voted in for Spaces Summit. Why would you care for my problem? It's my cascade of events that led up to me hitting a hard limit. So I thought, yeah, well, perhaps your self-care is a thing for you. Or perhaps you're struggling yourself. Perhaps you're feeling on the brink of burnout. You're already there, perhaps, or are recovering from it. I hope by sharing my own story, I can help you help yourself. And I'll do that by telling you a bit about me, to provide you some context of who's in front of you, my story, how I started, how I noticed that I got a burnout, what I did during my recovery, and what made the difference. That's me, obviously, and those are our kids. And that's my wife. She's a childbirth educator, and she coaches mothers. And that leaves her working hours into nights and Saturday mornings structurally, which makes our family rhythm asynchronous at times. So that can be challenging with two youngsters. I love them to bits, but they, yeah, you know how it is. If you have kids, right? That's also me. Not that I like to jump a parachute, but I'm a site reliability engineer, and you definitely want a parachute to be reliable, right? So the way we do site reliability engineering in Bol is that we develop concepts and tools for the whole of the company, and we help teams apply them, and domains and areas help them apply them, and we learn from that and improve our tools. So it's a continuous mesh of projects and virtual teams and regular teams, and so the context switches all day. That's also me. Anyone here seen Up, the movie? Yeah? So that dog always, for non-informed, he always screams, "Squirrel, squirrel!" Well, that's me as well. I have ADHD. So I'll be chasing every squirrel I see. And if it's not, then I'll be hyper-focusing on a problem which is in front of me. So attention is a continuous point of focus for me. I'll bring you to... I think yeah, it's a personal story, so this happens, right? The 21st of March, 2023, I looked at my agenda, and I saw a meeting every hour of 30 minutes. Hypothetically, I could work half a day, but we all know that's not how it works, right? So I was overwhelmed, and it wasn't the first time. It had been happening for a long, long time already, that my agenda got filled, and I had no feeling of control whatsoever. So I had to call it. I called my manager, and we had a talk. A genuine talk. And we revisited that talk multiple times, and we still don't know why, but at a certain point, he told me to close my laptop and call it a day, and we'll call again in 2 days. So that's what I did. And yeah, so you don't have to ask me how I knew I had a burnout, because I didn't, actually. And I still don't know why I had a burnout. Um, and actually, I don't think that's very relevant, because it's a very hard diagnose. And um, I knew I needed help, and I called for help. So when I discussed this with my wife, I asked her, did you know that something was going on? Well, she said there were some signs. You were tired, you didn't sleep well, you were always in a hurry, you were continuously overwhelmed, you were frustrated, you were easily annoyed, you were even angry. I said, you make it sound like all the happiness disappeared from the world. Yeah, so all the signs were there and I missed them completely. I closed my laptop that day, and the next day it felt like this, quite literally, like someone opened up the curtains after a long period of darkness and let the light in. I felt free of responsibility. I felt at liberty to take the time I needed, to take the attention I needed. Yeah. And then at a certain point, I didn't do any work then for nearly a month. What I did do is go outside a lot. I walked, I biked, and most of the time I slept. I slept for 3-4 hours a day during daytime. Obviously, I needed that. But then it was a Friday morning at 10:30. I had no responsibility whatsoever. I was totally at liberty to do what I needed to do. And that feeling of chest pressure was back. So I was wondering, how could that happen? How could that be? No one was waiting on me. I could do whatever I want. So I sat with it. I just sat with it. And after some time, I realized that by that point of the day, I had already done 15 different things consecutively without any break. I set the table, I made breakfast, I made the bread for the school, brought the kids to school, up to painting a table in passing, which was sitting in the garage, waiting for me to have time. So I did that. I had time. Boy, I was wrong. And I wondered, how could that be? Because I had self-care. I had self-care routines. Look, I got the pictures to prove it. This, it might not mean anything. This is my habit tracker. Ever since that first event of that log appearing on my chest, that feeling, I started to do walking meditations. And I always take the same route, being a creature of habit. And every time I pass that point, I take that picture, and that picture tells me I take care of myself. So I have hundreds of pictures of that on my phone, and yet I still felt there overwhelmed. And apart from that, I did journaling, I did meditations, I did weekly reviews. And I could notice something. I noticed that I was not okay by doing nothing. So I did more of that, nothing. That nothing became a part of my routine, just as my self-care became non-optional, actually. It became part of the family schedule. Breakfast is over, kids are to school, I go for a walk. Lunch is over, you go lie down. It was not a question of if, but it was a given. So I started my recovery doing 2 hours of work, which no one relied upon. I could do whatever I wanted, something that gave me energy. And our bilas shifted from bi-weekly to weekly. And in that bila, we checked in. How am I feeling about what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, and can I take on more, or do I need to take a break there? Um, yeah, so they became a check-in point. Even when we upped the hours, I checked in during that Bila or before that, so I had a story. Can I take on more or not? And when I went, so that feeling of checking in, it became a conscious thing. Also, when I went to the office for the first time, it was overwhelming to see the sheer amount of people in the office. I couldn't do anything, but I felt it was okay because, yeah, I needed that. And when I took on more responsibility, I checked in with myself. Can I take on more or not? So I started actually to feel more and more that I matter, well, at least to me. So that feeling really stuck with me during that whole process, during that whole routine. That routine became a check-in point and a sort of accountability point. And I did that, but the difference was that I was doing it more consciously now, actually consciously. So the routine of self-care became a conscious thing. And instead of checking boxes, I need to do that because I know that's good for me. But what I do now is actually I check in with myself. Do I need that? And do I need more? Then I'll take a 30-minute walk instead of a 10-minute walk. So my self-care routines have shifted from the functional checklist into something I need. And during the process, the feedback loop of what I'm doing and how I'm feeling about it really shortened, to put it in programmer's terms. The feedback loop shortened. So yes, I still struggle from that log. It will return. But I will notice it earlier, and I know what I can do. So what also helped is something else. And when I talked about my morning routine. What I also do now is actually speak up. I'll be more vocal about it. So when we have lunch after a long morning and I'm feeling drained by energy, I'll tell my colleagues, not all of them, but one or two. Well, I'll go and do yoga nidra. You know that place? It's in the office. It's one of the places where you can really turn inwards. Actually, there are more places like that in the A tower, in the D tower. And if they are not available or too far away, I'll book a room for 30 minutes, sit there with my headphones, with my back to the door, and meditate. Those are times where I can take my break. So, point is, I'm vocal about it more now. And that vocalization really helps with the self-conviction of that I need that. So that really makes me set myself put forward, a step forward. So before I close off, I want to circle back to the beginning, where I said that I was amazed by the votes. I thank you for that, and I also thank for people for the support I got from them. People told me I was brave to bring up this subject, and I'm not afraid to talk about my feelings. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. And perhaps there are people who wish I did less of that, but hey, that's me. The topic is something of a taboo. It's hard to talk about. Perhaps you're struggling yourself. You find it hard to speak up on it. It was a reason why I didn't ask you for in the beginning. Do you feel you're on a brink of a burnout? Of course, yeah. It's I can see some boundaries being put up there. It's not something to be ashamed about. It is part of being who you are, knowing that you have boundaries and you will hit them. And probably you hit them hard like I did, or so you have hit them hard. It's worth protecting. You don't live to work, you work to live, as my dad used to say, still does. So I'm 47 and I plan to work a long, long time, and I want to do it in a sustainable way. And then that's why my recovery was aimed at sustainable recovery, and that's also the take that Bol has. If I aimed at recovering in my old function, and and it worked, but if it didn't, then I had to shift because I want to make it sustainable. So don't be afraid to put yourself first. Take self-care seriously. Take care of yourself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bart, for sharing this very personal story with us. I must say, as someone who is currently reintegrating as well after being overworked, I appreciate it very much that this can be shared in a public way at the Spaces Summit. So I encourage everyone to follow Bart's advice and indeed take care of yourself and talk about it. We have time for a few questions, if anyone has any for Bart.
Not even at the top.
I have a question myself, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Yes. So I was wondering how you, in your team, have managed to ask your teammates to maybe notify you if you get one of those points again, like frustrated, angry, or whatever, if they see it before you notice it yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I didn't agree on that, but I'm lucky to have a really perceptive team.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll notice, and they'll state to me. Basically, it boils down to what I told about my family routine. It's not optional. It's part of the system of the inner workings. We had lunch. You probably need your time. That's what they state.
Mm-hmm.
So they're really perceptive. I thank them for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can see why that not every team will work like that. But vocalization of you having a problem perhaps helps your team to get awareness of it.
Yeah. So talk about it.
Yeah,
basically.
talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't be afraid. It's part of being human, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Any questions from the audience? Oh, yeah, there.
Thank you, Bart, for sharing. I understand that you have a very accommodating team. They're perceptive. They know you personally. You also mentioned that sometimes it creeps up on you. Sometimes it just happens that you're overwhelmed. It's too much. Yeah. You need a timeout. But not everybody knows you, and not everybody is probably as receptive, like, hey, yeah, why is Bart not in this meeting? We are depending on his input or whatever. How does that work? How do you deal with that?
If I am supposed to be in a meeting at a time where I'm not feeling well, it depends, actually. Sometimes I take a break before that, and I'll turn up a bit late with prior notice. I need some time. Yeah, and really what helps is the the shorter feedback loop I developed over time. I'm more aware of how I'm actually feeling and what I can take. Actually, that's the accountability loop where I talked about. So I'm more aware of where I'm close to a limit. That's not the same as actually hitting a limit and not being able to do what you need to do. I'm aware of that, but I'm more conscious of where I'm at the whole spectrum. That helps. Does that answer your question?
More or less, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but
Yeah.
I think Bart will be happy to answer any questions
Yes.
at a later moment today or any other day. So please give a round of applause again for Bart Stroeken.
Thank you.